Hello people, my name is Jancy, aka Year of the Collector. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, I appreciate you. And welcome back if you're a day one regular. I love you and I appreciate you as well. In this episode of Thoughts and Reviews, we are going to be covering a pretty underrated series that just got collected and printed in the Big 2-6. This trade paperback, or trade for short, collects two stories from the Marvel's digital original line that first came out in 2018 and 2019. These short stories are called Blind Spot and Purple Daughther, and they are by Kelly Thompson, Mattia de Iulis, Mario Takara, and Felipe Andrade. The original covers of both series were done by Martin Simmons. This collection explores two very important aspects of Jessica Jones's character. A, the highs and lows of a private investigator in the world of Marvel Comics, but especially their ramifications of the actions, or sometimes the inactions, of Jessica and the consequences for her and those around her. And B, how does Jessica Jones, former failed superhero turned private detective, copes with her post-traumatic stress disorder as a hero, as a wife, and as a mother. You don't have to know much about Jessica Jones to follow along in this series. In Blind Spot, Jessica is forced to confront the mistakes of her past as a private investigator when an old client she was unable to help shows up dead in her office. With new developments, Jessica has to reopen the investigation and solve a case that's both old and new at the same time. At first, Jessica is implicated in the murder because the body was left in her office, but with good detective work, the help of a sorcerer supreme, some collaboration and exchange of notes with a friend/enemy, a monster hunting session at the Hudson River, and a Little Miss Marvel cosplay action, Jessica clears her name by solving the case and saves the day with everyone's help. This proved to be quite the challenge, and because the stakes were pretty high, Kelly Thompson takes the time to unfold this mystery while parading a widespread of supporting characters. Jessica Jones might have abandoned the superhero gig, but she's one of the most capable detectives around, and the list of heroes who love and respect her is pretty extensive. When it comes to the Purple Daughther story arc, one thing I noticed was that Kelly Thompson does a great job at jumping the hurdle that is continuity in superhero comics by using supporting characters for subtle exposition. No flashbacks, no origin rehashing, just plain old subtle hints between dialogues. But just in case you don't know, or you read this book and are not sure what these characters are talking about, here it goes. What happened between Jessica and the Purple Man took place in the ALIAS series, but more specifically in Volume 4, titled The Secret Origins of Jessica Jones. Before she was a blunt, sarcastic, and guarded private investigator, Jessica was a happy-go-lucky, eat your veggies and take your vitamins type of superhero. She went by the name of Jewel and had a very colorful personality and a bright future ahead of her, until one day she ran into the Purple Man. This guy was bad, like a nightmare, worst case scenario bad. Kilgrave has one of those types of powers that are not brought up too often because they are very problematic. Essentially, he could control people with his pheromones. Jessica Jones was one of the many victims of the Purple Man, but in Jessica's case, not only he mind controlled her to do crimes for him, he also forced her to watch as he did crimes to others. It's also heavily implied he abused her physically and mentally for weeks or maybe months. All that emotional trauma is constantly carried by Jessica ever since she managed to free herself from Kilgrave's control. Unfortunately, those open wounds begin bleeding again, so to speak, when Danielle Cage, her daughter, shows up to their home with her skin in the color purple. The minds of Luke and Jessica race towards thinking traps, and worst case scenarios, separately yet simultaneously. It must be a daunting and terrifying feeling of hopelessness just to think your abuser gets to have one more laugh at the expense of your family and your personal sanity. Purple Daughter is basically a horror story from the perspective of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and the artists manage to convey that sentiment throughout the story. But Jessica Jones is nothing if not resilient. Above all the self destructing tendencies like the drinking, the sleepless nights, and the self imposed isolation, Jessica is an excellent investigator and an underestimated hero. With the help of some of the street level heroes we're familiar with, along with some powerful allies like Emma Frost and Carol Danvers, Jessica drags herself all over New York to get to the bottom of this purple mystery. And that's as far as I will go on reviewing these two stories without spoiling them. At least for now, I'm willing to revisit Alias and anything Jessica Jones or Luke Cage for that matter at a later date. There is something that needs to be said for context. There's a letter written by Kelly Thompson at the end of issue number 1. And to summarize it, Kelly explains how she came to write a Jessica Jones series in the first place. It was none other than Brian Michael Bendis who called her and asked if she would be interested in writing a Jessica Jones comic book series for Marvel. Bendis shared how much he liked Kelly's work, and if she was up for it, both him and Michael Gaydos, the creators of the character, would gently put Jessica Jones in the hands of Kelly. As you can imagine, this was a big deal for all parties involved. Just picture this. Jessica Jones debuted in Alias and was created by Bendis and Gaydos, and the only other series headlined by the same character was the Jessica Jones title from 2016, which Bendis and Gaydos were also the creative team for. I can only imagine how big this must have been for Kelly Thompson and the validation she must have felt, but also the pressure and the responsibility to deliver. I can see very clearly that Thompson and the Yulis were fans of Jessica Jones and more specifically the Alias comic book series. In both the narrative and the visual storytelling, you can see they drew inspiration directly from Bendis and Gaydos. Some examples of these are the cold and dry relationship Jessica has with law enforcement, the fact that Matt Murdock is always coming to rescue her from trumped up charges, the way Jessica sits down and listens to other people's problems, especially her clients, or the way Jessica completely abandons herself into her work. Thompson and the Yulis know this character, Jessica Jones, the woman, the hero, the detective, the wife, the mother, along with her struggles and her dreams, and deliver us one hell of a series. As far as the art goes, Mattia the Yuli's work here is solid, but it's not the Mattia we have come to know today, 6 years later. His artwork is a couple of notches below in quality compared to where he is at in 2026. But in retrospect, his work on Jessica Jones serves to map out his progress as an artist and as a storyteller. Not necessarily a bad thing, this is just the best way to show how far he's come in just 6 years. I would say Mattia has developed his attention to detail, depth, and textures in significant increments since this project. Here's an example of his most recent work from Absolute Wonder Woman to compare. Finally, to finish up this review, it is in my humble estimation that Thompson and the Yulis work incredibly well together, as seen here or in the call from Image Comics, and of course, the current Absolute Wonder Woman hit series from DC Comics. I, for one, am very satisfied with this installment in the legacy and the lore of Jessica Jones. If you're still watching, I want to thank you for your time. This is just one of those series that goes under the radar, and I wanted to put some content out there just in case somebody comes on the interwebs one day looking for this series. This is for you, my fellow imaginary future Jessica Jones fan. I hope it helps. Have a blessed day and remember to read more comics.